Okay, so we have this assembly here. Just got done balancing it, but I want to record where it's at, and I'm going to rotate the compressor wheel 180 degrees out from where it's currently balanced. So we're going to go to the balancer, compressor side, turbine side, so now we're going to go ahead and rotate it, and we'll recheck it again, rotate. I got to mark it first, and we'll do our rotation. Be right back. Okay. So, the purple normally lines up with the purple after we just balanced it. Marked out, and I took them 180 out. So there's the other one, here's that one. Nothing changing. Way above spec. Just by rotating it out, we went from under a 5 under 5, to a 33, 32. Turbine side, 15. And it was at like a 2. This is what happens when you surge these too hard. There's a limited amount of surface area under the nut. So our nut's surface area, to our compressor wheel's surface area, to the base surface area, to our upper thrust collar surface area. So, depending on the shaft torque of the nut, tell you how much torque has to be generated in the opposite direction to rotate the compressor wheel between these 2 points. This happens during surge, operating in the surge region heavily, or if the turbo is surged hard, it will, what I call, desync the system. So when these two were lined up, saw previously they were balanced very nicely, and now all I did was rotate these out of alignment and put it back on the balancer without changing anything, and we saw that our settings went up considerably. This is way out of spec. And remember, these vibrations vibrate from the compressor to the turbine wheel. And then back and forth. They reverberate from the edges down to the edges down. And that's what's causing these failures in the turbine wheel, where just the back section is breaking loose. Sorry for the poor video quality. This guy here, I'll go look at the sun. So this failure is from that. So what happens is the compressor wheel gets desynced from the turbine wheel, and then it starts to vibrate at a higher rate. If it vibrates at the frequency that'll cause this material to fail, it does that to a T. Every single one's looked exactly the same. And when you lose that much Inconel off the back of one of these things, it goes ballistic and just destroys everything. So it is a failure that I never would have found had I not started to build so many of these. And early on, I was worried it was a material failure. But after looking at it being isolated to certain model year trucks, given they have certain injection systems and trans tuning, and given I do every single one of these exactly the same, so if it was a material issue, it should plague 89 to 07, and instead it only plagues 03 to 07s for the most part. Like, there's a huge gap in the amount of 03 07s that do this to the turbo wheel. There's very few VPs, almost no P pumps. The only time I've seen a P pump do this is actually on a come and swap into a Power Stroke, and they use the 4R100 or the 5R100 or 1100, whatever the heck thing's called. Their trans tuning tends to make them surgy, so that seems to add up. So you got to be very careful with the whole set frames when running the 7667 turbine wheel because of that very reason. It's a frequency harmonic, so it has to do with the imbalance, it has to do with what it's on engine wise, it has to do with this tip lengthen design. That's why we don't see this on the smaller turbine wheels even when they're way out of whack, because that resonance frequency is going to be different because the length of the blades are different, so they're going to vibrate at different resonant frequencies. So there's a little video on essentially the biggest weakness in the HX35, 40, and 351s that I have found to date is the surface area of nut to wheel and wheel to collar paired with the design of this turbo wheel itself. S300s seem to be immune to this. I had one in recently where every single inducer was melted off. These two collars were friction welded together, but the turbo was still running. Not perfectly. To them it was perfectly because they had no idea, but it was still running. Same with the 7060 and the factory 351 turbine wheel. They can be damaged and they seem to be just fine. It's only when you get into these big bladed wheels and have a lot of blade out unsupported that this problem occurs. And I imagine if we were to be able to see the resonance frequency off of here, we'd have some kind of pattern that equates to the same shape as that brake, because they literally all break the exact same way when that occurs. As long as these are synced up, they're absolutely perfectly happy and fine. They will run, shouldn't, depend on engine speed, but they will run 70 pounds of boost just fine. You will get some desync from shaft twist, but as long as you're within the difference of these two blades, 10 degrees, actually I'm pretty sure I'm wrong, it'd be 360 divided by the number of spaces, but as long as you're within this range here, if you go balance check it, it'll be okay. It's when they get really far out that they cause issues. You can see it on the compressor wheel, and on the bottom of that you'll see fretting when you take them apart. They will be extraordinarily tight. So 70 pounds of boost is not the same stress load on the system as the peak pressure that's achieved during a surge event. Surge events create massive pressure spikes, and those pressure spikes are typically only in a certain area of the compressor wheel, so they tend to be isolated to a certain region of the wheel, which would add to the twisting force being applied in the opposite direction, plus a shaft bending force that's being applied due to gyroscopic precession, which you can see because they'll only hit the comp cover in one area. And then once these two are out of sync, you'll be going down the road doing nothing, and it'll lose that chunk out of here. And as soon as it loses that chunk out of there, this thing goes wild, because when we remove material from the turbine wheel, we remove very little due to its weight. So you can imagine what losing a big chunk of blade will do to these things. Like I said, originally, I've been doing this for a while, and originally I was worried it was a metallurgy issue. But then we started, continued to build them, and the systems that failed were almost exclusively 03 to 07s. Yet I used the exact same manufacturer for the turbine wheel. I balance all of them the exact same way, and 89 to 02s tend to have no problems. So that's something when we started looking into trans-tuning and an injection system versus engine frequency and how surgy the system could be. And it started to make sense talking with some of the distributors with what they noticed systems failed on versus my ideas, and it does seem to line up. So it doesn't matter who you get your modified whole set from, they all suffer this problem. And a thing that can be very helpful for any owner of a modified whole set that's 35, 40, 351, 341 is to be very careful and try your dang best not to surge them, because if you desync the balance, they will just let go down the road at a random point. You don't know when. It'll seem like the turbo just failed for no reason, but if you have that piece missing out of here, it is called a desync, is what I call it, and it's a vibrational failure that occurred at some point early on, and then while going down the road, doing nothing dangerous or crazy or fun or memorable with the turbocharger, they just break. The best way I've found to get out of this is if it's on a vehicle that's going to be surgy, we look toward the new S300s that I do, or from anybody else. A little bit of a loss in spool up, but they are freaking hard to kill. So I hope you enjoyed this little video. I hope this was helpful. If this keeps some of these turbochargers from failing, whether it's I don't care if it's mine or someone else's, they're all going to suffer from the same issue because we all use the same size everything. If it keeps one of these things alive and helps you out, please do it. We run the same turbocharger on our pull truck. It runs 64 pounds of boost at 4,000 RPMs, 3,800 to 4,000 RPMs. No problems. This is what's on my own truck. This is what's on my parents' trucks. This is what's on all my friends' trucks. This is what's on my drag truck. And we are all extremely careful not to search them. And we have put thousands of miles on them with zero issues. It's when they get surged, even it doesn't matter if it's on purpose or by accident. The compressor wheel doesn't care if it was an accident or by purpose. If it gets desynced down the road, if they get out of spec just like this one did on the thing, down the road at some point, it'll just let go. So, thanks for watching and have a good day.